Tyrael's might, an argument for the Nerf. There are these things called landmark Supreme Court cases in the United States. They are cases of paramount importance that fundamentally alter our rights, and as the Supreme Court is stocked with judges, and judges are the worst types of lawyers in the world, they sometimes get those cases wrong. However, most of the time, even when someone gives a ruling that is fatuous, the legal reasoning is at least sound, like Schenck v. United States, where Oliver Holmes limited the right to freedom of speech because he's an asshat. There are 3 cases, though, that are, well, most constitutional scholars would agree, regardless of their feelings on the actual rulings, that were just plain wrong from a legal perspective. And in order, the 3 worst Supreme Court cases are Dred Scott, which said escaped slaves were still property even when they crossed into Free State territory, Plessy v. Ferguson, which implemented the racist separate but equal laws in the United States, and then controversially, Roe v. Wade, which made abortion bans unconstitutional. Now, don't think this is some sort of right-wing rant on Roe. I went to a law school consistently ranked in the top 3 most progressive or liberal student bodies, and they make sure to teach at that school just how bad Roe was in reasoning because it would only take one good fact pattern to overturn it. Seriously, Justice Blackmun hit a crack pipe and just started making up laws and U.S. history. The case ruling makes no sense, and even progressive pro-choice advocates make sure everyone knew how bad that case was, like Ruth Bader Ginsburg herself, the late progressive queen of the Supreme Court, who had harsh words for Roe. And by the way, they only had 50 years to codify abortion rights in the federal law, and then the Supremacy Clause of the United States would have taken over, so you can't, they only had half a century, guys, to figure it out. You gotta give them some credit. But if you do follow U.S. news, that case did recently get overturned. And the point is, one change of facts can cause the entire ruling to crumble. That's what happens when you have bad legal reasoning. And I believe we have that here in Season 6 with the changes to cannot be frozen corruptions being removed from boots. How's that for... that's a terrible transition. Either way, Tyrael's might in its current form should be removed from the regular drop table, or the item needs a severe nerf to conform to Project Diablo 2's goal of overall balance and choice. Now, I know this is going to be unpopular, but to hell with it. I've been sucked into the YouTube stardom of trying to hit 1,000 subs, and I think I forgot my core message of facilitating discussion and burying price checks to do what's necessary to improve the game or the community. So consider this my 3rd attempt to suicide my reputation and my channel. 3rd time's the charm, right? That's why I started this with an abortion rights thing and an opinion no one's going to like. To start, I'm not saying that whales or the rich shouldn't have endgame chase items. I've actually argued for the exact opposite. And you can find that video in the description. Hell, I've even argued that casuals don't need to be considered when it comes to game balance, which you can also find in the description. I'm also not saying overpowered items shouldn't exist at all. I am saying, and I gotta be clear about this, that due to the fact that cannot be frozen corruptions, which were changed, and that was a welcome, necessary, and good thing, that Tyrael's might has now moved itself into a category of item that should be reserved for declone or Rathma drops in its current form. The item has insane damage to demons and undead, resistances, no strength requirement, cannot be frozen, and most importantly, I think, a stupid amount of faster run walk that makes it the item to have for too many endgame builds. Even if it isn't your ideal piece, having a 2-socket Tyrael's fits almost any physical build. There is no item in the game you would have over a Tyrael's, much less a 2 or 3 socket one. In particular, the problematic rules are the cannot be frozen and the faster run walk. Now, previously, CBF allowed someone to replace cannot be frozen on their boots, which was kind of a minor upgrade. However, with CBF removed from boots and placed onto amulets and such, the price of chams has skyrocketed in response, as placing a cham into an open socket is now a viable option for obtaining cannot be frozen. This is a good change. It forces choice in less than ideal situations to become the norm. But now that change has been implemented, it makes the CBF on Tyrael's all the more powerful, as you can't roll it on the baby Tyrael's Fortitude because it's a rune word. The faster run walk is also the 2nd most available in the game on a base item outside of Merman Sprocket boots, which is really only used for that faster run walk on it at 60%. I mean, your next best item is what, Alders with 40% run walk? When you add sockets to the mix, it's just going to insane levels of overpowered, which is fine, but then why is this item dropping from the regular game? Most troubling is that there has been a god tier 3-socket Tyraels up for sale for a few weeks now, and one item asked in response was an actual declone item, the Overlord's Helm with 2 sockets on it itself. Think about that. This regular dropped, corrupted item has the equivalent value to a god tier, ultra rare drop with a perfect corruption and sockets. So why shouldn't those items come from the same source, which requires the same prep time and skill to obtain? And for the record, I did have a Tyraels in Season 2 on my Barizazon before I started making posts and videos. Personally, I gave up on the game after a week after getting it because I was done and the build was so OP it sucked the life out of playing. Now I know damn well that's personal and anecdotal. I know some people won't enjoy losing that feeling of absolute game-wrecking power, as everyone did hate that power being removed with the original Boazon nerfs. But PD2 has always been about forcing choice and challenging builds to be concise in the face of less than perfect standards. And now Tyrael stands as the only choice. If you want to complete the God build, you don't need to learn Declone or Rathma. You just need to get lucky or save up enough to buy one. That's not a choice, it's a necessity. And necessity fits all build items have been consistently nerfed, like Grief, or have not been added, like unique bolts and arrows, or drop from insanely hard endgame content, like Overlords. So therefore, I suggest a nerf to Tyraels, and I think I have 5 potential solutions. We can severely nerf the run walk on Tyraels. We can remove the cannot be frozen from Tyraels. We could prevent corruptions from providing sockets. We could also make Tyraels drop from Rathma or Declone at the same rate as similar items like an Overlord's Helm. Or, lastly, which I think is what we should do, is some combination of all of these, where a nerfed form of Tyraels drops from LOD and maps and the such, and the current form of Tyraels drops from Rathma Declone. And that is the option I personally prefer. That's really all I have, and I want to say thank you for coming to my TED Talk on this item, and the unsubscribe button, or downvote button if you're on Reddit, are in the corners, and thanks for your feedback.